All right, what's up, everyone? It's Andrew Bone here, BamaInsider.com. Uh, just want to get you guys up to speed on what's going on with recruiting right now. Obviously, a lot going on. Big recent commitment from William Anderson. We're going to talk about him a little bit. Talk about the recent decommitment from Wright. We'll talk about the kids that are also still taking visits that are committed to Alabama. We're going to go over some of the kids that took official visits to Alabama last weekend, some kids that are visiting Alabama this weekend, and just a few other little bits and pieces of news that I've had posted on Bama Insider this week. Some news that we've seen, throughout the week on some top kids that have been either visiting Alabama or been posting about their favorites and stuff like that. So let's kind of get into it. First off, let's talk about William Anderson, the big commitment this week for Alabama. Gives Alabama 20 commitments in this 2020 recruiting class. William Anderson, 6'4", 235-pound defensive end, outside linebacker from Georgia. I think he's more of probably an outside linebacker, rush end type guy. Jack linebacker is kind of what I see him playing at Alabama. And everybody keeps saying, "Oh, well, Alabama's stacking up at the linebacker position." People don't think Alabama can take anymore, but there's still some guys out there that they would still accept in this year's recruiting class. Guys like Philip Webb over in Georgia, a guy that they really like a lot. They're still heavily recruiting. Obviously, you got your guys like Justin Flo and Noah Sewell, two big-time inside linebackers that Alabama, still loves. That they're trying to get in town for official visits, and I certainly believe Alabama's in the running for those guys. But I don't think they're done. With William Anderson, recruited more, like I said, like a jack linebacker. Could he potentially grow into a defensive end? Maybe. 6'4", 235 pounds at the high school level. So we'll see how much he grows over the course of the next 2 years. But I really like that commitment. I mean, he had 18 sacks as a junior. So he's an elite pass rusher. He can get to the quarterback. He's aggressive. He's got great quickness off the ball. I think Alabama fans, for the most part, it seemed like they were very excited. They were hoping William Anderson was going to commit, and he committed, and there was a lot of excitement. Of course, the following day, we saw Wright, a 3-star athlete out of Gadsden. He attends Gadsden City High School now. He was actually at Etowah High School for the last few years, transferred for his senior season to Gadsden City High School, and decided to reopen his recruitment. Took me a little bit by surprise. I know, and listen, I get it. I know how fans are. They look at the list of recruiting rankings and everything, and they see, with Alabama, they see all these 4 or 5-star type kids. So whenever there's a 3-star on there, they say, "Oh, well, that guy may end up going somewhere else down the road because there's some other guys that Alabama's in on." Wright's a kid that Alabama's liked for a long time. He showed up at the Alabama Junior Day several months ago, and first off, just really impressed them from a physical standpoint. I mean, they really liked him. They were kind of blown away by him. They were going to wait a little while. They thought about waiting until the summer to let him come to camp, but went ahead and took his commitment early. It seemed like everything was fine. He came to camp a couple weeks ago, worked out at safety, worked out at tight end, worked out at a wide receiver. Now, we had him on our site on Rivals projected as an outside linebacker, and not a bad projection. 6'4", about 220 pounds. Probably wanting to play defense in college. It just seemed like he was a defensive type guy. But went to Alabama's camp, and from what I was told from different people who were there, he had a great showing. I mean, they really liked what he did out there. But then he started taking some other visits. I think Alabama talked to him about that, and he said that he wanted to continue to take visits. That he wanted to take all of his official visits in the fall. And Alabama, I assume they just told him, like, "Listen, you're either committed or you're not. We don't really have time to kind of wait around and figure out what you're going to do, because there's other kids that they're in on, that they're still heavily recruiting." And especially kids that are looking at Alabama in terms of outside linebacker, since he's ranked as an outside linebacker. I don't know if that really had anything to do with it, but Alabama's also recruiting some tight ends, and we'll talk about some of those guys here in a minute. But tight end position very very tight right now, and if he's going to continue to take visits, and Alabama needs to know, and they were told, and he decided to back away. Will Alabama continue to go after him? It's hard to say. I just don't know right now. I think him decommitting probably hurt his chances a good bit to get back in the class. Now, was he forced out of the class? No, and that's kind of the narrative that some people probably think that he was forced out, that he was that Alabama's going after somebody better. That's not the case. He was not forced out. He was solidly in Alabama's recruiting class, but with him decommitting, Alabama's probably just going to move on. I think they'll try to get some other guys, and I think he probably really hurt his chances to get back in this recruiting class. And there's still some other kids that are out there that are committed to Alabama that are still taking visits elsewhere. We saw Jason Jones, defensive lineman from Calera, take an official visit to Georgia Tech this past weekend. I would really watch out for that one pretty closely because he's definitely been showing a lot of interest in some other schools, been taking some official visits. So that's one I'd keep an eye on. Daz Worsham, the 4-star receiver from Hewitt-Trussville, he's taking an official visit to Miami this weekend instead of attending the cookout in Tuscaloosa. Javon Baker. I think Javon Baker is pretty solid. I mean, he gets to Alabama as much as he can, but I am kind of surprised he is supposed to take a visit down to LSU this weekend, going down to LSU instead of making it to the cookout. Now, he was at Alabama earlier this year, so it may just be his only chance to get down to LSU because I know he wants to take some visits. So, I really wouldn't kind of look at that as, oh, wow, he's skipping Alabama to go down to LSU. I'd look at that as he's been to Alabama already this summer. The only other time he can possibly get to another school is going to be in late July. So he may be coming to Alabama in late July for the cookout instead, because Alabama's going to have another cookout in July. So I really wouldn't look too much into that just yet. I think he's just kind of enjoying the process, taking some visits. A lot of schools are coming after him, so wouldn't look too much into that. And then Thal Jones-Bell, the 4-star receiver from Miami, took a visit down to Miami this past weekend. I think he'll take an official to Miami, and I think he'll probably take some officials elsewhere. I mean, Tennessee was in his top 2 when he made that decision, so would not be surprised if he ends up taking an official to Tennessee. But I think he's all in with Alabama. I think he's pretty solid, even though he's kind of enjoying the process. I think he's just going to enjoy these visits as well, and just go on these trips. But I don't really think he's going to flip. I think he's pretty solid. But if I were watching a few guys in this class in terms of potentially flipping, I would watch Worsham because he's going to Miami this weekend. But it's hard to say because he's an in-state kid. He's a Hewitt-Trussville kid, and he's a kid that Alabama wants to keep in his class. So keep an eye on for him. And then, like I said, Jason Jones, he's going to take visits this fall. Florida, LSU, all trying to get in the mix there. Obviously, Georgia Tech is in the mix, so we'll keep an eye out for him. All right, so we've gone over William Anderson. We've talked about DeRicky Wright, talked about some of these kids that are still taking visits elsewhere. Going to go down and look at some of these kids that visited Alabama last weekend for officials. Now, Alabama had 5 official visitors on campus last weekend. One of them, I guess you can say, went public with his decision. I never even saw anything him saying, publicly that he was committed, but we know that he's committed. Landon Dickerson, the FSU graduate transfer, he is going to be arriving at Alabama in August as grad transfer. He'll have 2 years to play at Alabama. So, I think that's a good thing. A lot of these graduate transfers usually just have 1 year. He's going to have 2 years to play because he got a medical red shirt 1 year down at Florida State. So, getting a player of his caliber to come in and work out on the offensive line. I think they're looking at him more as a tackle or guard, and not really looking at him as a center. But could play tackle or guard. But he'll get there in the fall. Got a lot of talent. He has to stay, injury free, but has a lot of talent. I think that's a big pickup for Alabama. Eric Gilbert, the 5-star tight end and one tight end in the country. I think you can make an easy argument for Darnell Washington as the number one tight end in the country as well. Two guys that Alabama is very much involved with. But Eric Gilbert, the currently ranked as the number one tight end in the country according to Rivals.com, out of Marietta, Georgia, visited Alabama last weekend, and it was his first official visit. I always say, it's tough to get a kid on campus, be the first official visitor, because he's already used his official visit. He's going to take these other visits elsewhere. Georgia, Tennessee, Clemson, all very much involved with him. A lot of people think Georgia's, the favorite for him, the heavy favorite for him. I think Alabama's in it. I think he had a great visit. We have an interview with him on Bama Insider, so you can look that up after we get off the airway here. But I think he had a great trip to Alabama. Gave him a lot to think about. Alabama has a very big need at tight end right now, and obviously they get the ball to their tight ends, as they've shown the last few years. So I think he had a great visit, and I think he'll at least be back in Tuscaloosa for a game this fall, even though it'll just be an unofficial visit. I expect him to at least make one more trip to Alabama before that decision happens. Saw a couple of defensive linemen. Saw three defensive linemen in Tuscaloosa last weekend. First, Justin Rogers, 5-star from Michigan, committed to Kentucky a couple weeks ago. A lot of people probably surprised by that a little bit. I think he does have a girlfriend that goes to Kentucky. So that shouldn't surprise many, but I think a lot of people were taken back by him committing to Kentucky over programs like Alabama or Georgia or Tennessee schools that were also very high on his list. But I came into Tuscaloosa last weekend, had a great time, but I just think this is going to be a long, drawn-out process. Even though he's committed, and we're starting to see him take visits, I think this is probably going to be a signing day decision. I don't think anybody's going to really know or really feel comfortable with what he's going to do until then. Maybe he will, but I don't think some schools will feel comfortable until he signs that paper on signing day. So definitely, I think Alabama's definitely involved with him, definitely in the mix, but long way to go in his recruitment. Miles Murphy out of North Carolina. Kind of crazy. There's two Miles Murphys this year. One's committed to Clemson out of Georgia, more as a elite pass rusher, defensive end, 5-star type kid. And then you have Miles Murphy out of North Carolina. Bigger type guy, 6 foot, 6'4", about 200 and close to about 280 pounds. Recruited as a D tackle. Visited Alabama and had a great time. Talked to him last night. Came in with his mom. It was her first visit to Alabama, and they both had a really great time. He has a very good relationship with Brian Baker, the defensive line coach. I think they've developed a very good chemistry there. He's going to take an official to Georgia, or excuse me, not Georgia. He's going to take an official visit to North Carolina this weekend. That's going to be his final visit. He's only taken 4. He's already visited South Carolina and Florida as well. He told me, or he said in an interview about a week or two ago, that Florida and South Carolina were his top 2 schools, followed by Alabama. I asked him last night, kind of where he stood with that, and he said that he doesn't have a favorite right now. That all the schools are pretty much equal. Alabama gave him a lot to think about. I think Alabama is very much in the picture here. I think they've done a good job recruiting him. They're really pressing hard for him. He's going to make a decision next month sometime. So I'm not ready to make a prediction on him just yet, but I think that Alabama has really kind of evened the playing field with Florida and South Carolina. We'll see how the visit goes to North Carolina this weekend. Don't see him going to North Carolina, but we'll see what happens after this official visit. And then Jacobian Gilroy, 4-star D lineman from Alexandria High School in Louisiana. It was actually his second visit in a row to Tuscaloosa. He was at Alabama's O-line D-line camp the weekend before, had a really good showing at the O-line D-line camp, came back for the official. He had a really good trip as well. Talked to him a good bit. He's going to take his second official this weekend to LSU. Those are his top 2 schools, Alabama and LSU. Would not be surprised if we see a decision happen with him in the next, probably a couple of weeks, maybe even a month. Definitely expect something before the season, because those are his top 2 schools. He's already taken official visits to both, or after this weekend, we'll have taken official visits to both of them. So would not be surprised if he goes ahead and pulls the trigger here pretty soon. will be interesting to see kind of what happens with the LSU. They have 4 defensive line commitments. Jacoby and Gilroy is still a top target for them. Also is Jacqueline Roy, also out of Louisiana, out of Baton Rouge. So those are 2 guys that they really want. Alabama really wants. So it'll be very interesting to watch, see how things unfold with those guys over the course of the next few months. So that's kind of a look at the official visitors that visited Alabama last weekend, and I'm going to kind of lead up to the point of the officials, everybody coming in this weekend. We'll talk about some of the other news that kind of happened this week at camp. I guess the first guy I wanted to talk about was Nadab Joseph. He signed with Georgia back in 2018. He was originally committed to LSU, and then backed away from that commitment and committed to Alabama. Was committed to Alabama for a very long time. I'll say a long time, a couple months. And then he ended up, flipping to Georgia. He wanted to sign in the early signing period. I remember his recruitment quite well because you always try to figure out, all right, who are the guys that are definitely going to sign? And, remember making some phone calls and, all right, these were the guys that were signing. Nadab Joseph wasn't one of those guys. Well, was told that, he was kind of upset about that Alabama wanted him to wait until February to sign. Wasn't really sure exactly why, but a lot of, obviously we know why, was because of grades. They wanted to wait a little bit, kind of see where he stood in February, a month or 2 down the road, kind of figure things out. A lot of people tell me, they say, well, if you don't know what's happening in December, or if you know what's happening in December, it's the same thing that's going to be in February. Well, not necessarily. You got some time. You got a month or 2 to kind of figure out exactly what you can do in terms of maybe taking some extra classes or what you could possibly do during the summer. It kind of gives them schools a little bit of extra time to figure that out. They don't want to sign someone that is definitely not going to qualify during the early signing period. It gives them a little bit more time to figure it out. Well, he ends up, I think Georgia recruited him really well. Georgia told him, hey, we can sign you. We'll go ahead and let you sign early. I think his plan was to enroll early, but he did not enroll early. He flipped to Georgia, didn't enroll early, then ended up not being able to qualify. So he's been at Independence Community College for the last 2 years. He redshirted his freshman year. But now he is back as a recruit. I don't think he considers himself a Georgia commitment right now. He visited Alabama on Sunday, did really well. Measured 6'2". I think he was 183 pounds, ran a 4.4 in the 40, had a 41-inch vertical, had an 11-foot broad jump. I mean, those are just unbelievable testing numbers. And he's certainly back on Alabama's radar, even though he flipped from Alabama to Georgia. Sometimes that leaves a bad taste in your mouth, but with Alabama, they decided that's they're not even worried about that. They like him enough as a prospect. They're still recruiting him. Now, he won't be able to enroll in January. He's not going to be able to graduate until next May. But I definitely think that Alabama is going to hold a spot for him, and that they seem to really like him a lot. Especially, how do you pass on a kid like that? Especially after getting all those measurables and him coming to camp and having a great showing. So we'll keep an eye on Nadab Joseph over the course of the next, I guess several months. Another kid I want to talk about is Kamari Lassiter out of Tuscaloosa, American Christian Academy. You always try to figure out, all right, who did well at camp. And I was told on Tuesday that this kid named Kamari Lassiter from American Christian really turned some heads out there. And then we posted that on the Bama Insider board. And then I think it's probably 30 minutes later, Kamari posted that he had been offered by Nick Saban, and had an opportunity to speak to him that night about the visit, about the camp. And he basically said he grew up an Alabama fan, which, for an outsider, oh, you grew up an Alabama fan, you're in Tuscaloosa, and no joke. Well, he's not actually from Tuscaloosa. He's from Savannah, Georgia. He moved to Tuscaloosa right before his ninth grade year, but he grew up an Alabama fan, like his whole life. Grew up an Alabama fan, always wanted to play there. So I thought that was interesting. Worked out at defensive back, worked out at corner, could potentially play safety. He's 5'11", 165 pounds. He's going to get a little bit bigger. Obviously, he just finished up his sophomore year, so he can get bigger over the course of the next couple of years. But definitely a kid that Alabama likes a lot early on, and could potentially be part of Alabama's 2021 recruiting class. So keep an eye out for him. There were some other top targets that were, and I say top targets. Some were top targets, some were top rated targets. Some guys that were in Tuscaloosa this weekend. Arian Smith, he's a 3-star wide receiver from Lakeland High School in Florida, and certainly a kid that Alabama loves a lot. They really want to add in this year's recruiting class. Alabama's had a lot of top kids on campus throughout the whole summer. The last 20 days especially. We posted on the board the other day. I think it's well over 40 Rivals 100 guys in the 2020 and 2021 class have been through Tuscaloosa this summer. I think that's incredible. Arian Smith out of Lakeland, not a Rivals 100 guy, but definitely a guy that they like a lot, that they would take a commitment from. There's some really good wide receivers in the state of Florida this year, especially some guys that Alabama's still recruiting. Alabama has one wide receiver from the state of Florida, and Thal Jones-Bell. Obviously, they want to keep him on board, but Arian Smith is certainly a kid that they like a lot, and I think they're definitely in the running for. Antoine Sampa, the big-time linebacker out of Virginia, is committed to LSU. Visited Alabama on Tuesday. I still think that Alabama, with the linebacker numbers, it's really tight right now. You'll probably have to see him a little bit more this fall before making a kind of a final decision on him. If they're going to make a big push for him, it'll probably happen in the fall. I don't think. I think they're recruiting him. Are they making a tremendous push for him right now? I just don't think that's the case. I think they're kind of focused on some other guys. Phillip Webb. As we mentioned earlier, they're trying to get Justin Flo back on campus. He's currently scheduled to take an official visit on September the 20th. So that would be a big-time inside linebacker target for them, along with Noah Sewell, who visited Alabama last week. I think probably still on the outside for him, but certainly a kid that's going to visit Alabama over the course of the next several months. All right, so we went through kind of what's been going on this week. Let's talk about this weekend. Big weekend, cookout weekend, and probably a little bit different than what we've seen in the past. We've seen some big recruiting events in Tuscaloosa, especially for these cookouts, and it's just like it's kind of a list of who's who among the top players. But problem with that this year is so many of the top kids that are on Alabama's radar have already visited Alabama this summer, and they're trying to get to as many schools as possible. Before the dead period hits on Sunday. Dead period hits on Sunday, and it's lasts all the way up until I think it's July the 26th, maybe 24th or 26th. Can't remember exactly, but basically schools are going to have 1 weekend to get kids on campus in the month of July. So kids are really trying to hit as many schools as possible. A lot of times you're not going to see them double up and go to Alabama or Tennessee or Georgia or whoever it may be. You're going to see them go to both those one school twice in 1 month. Some will. We'll have Alabama's going to have a few of those guys visit this weekend that have already visited Alabama this summer, and they're coming back. But for the most part, most of them won't. It's going to be pretty much guys who have not visited. So let's talk about the official visitors first. Going to have 2 official visitors on campus this weekend. One is 5-star running back Kendall Milton out of California, Buchanan High School. Probably really close to making a decision, and you probably expect something in the next couple of weeks. Visited Georgia last weekend, and it seems like every time he goes on a visit, the schools feel a lot more comfortable about him. He visited LSU. LSU felt good about him. Visited Ohio State. Ohio State felt good about him. Georgia felt very good about it, and I think Georgia probably is in the driver's seat for him. They've done a really good job recruiting him and his family, and I recently put in a forecast for Georgia. I typically don't put in a forecast until a kid is actually ready to make a decision, but felt pretty good about it. He's going to visit Alabama this weekend. Could I change my forecast after the visit? Maybe. Just all depends on how things go with Alabama this weekend, because I think they're really going to roll out the red carpet for him and make a big push for him. Alabama's still trying to get one more running back in this class. They really like Kendall Milton. They like Zach Evans a lot. Zach Evans has already visited Alabama this summer. His teammate, Damian George, is committed, and a lot of people think he's going to end up in Alabama's class, but I'm not ready to make a prediction on him just yet. I think his recruitment's still a long way away from being over. I don't even think he's taken any official visits yet. So, big visit with Kendall Milton this weekend, and then probably a decision coming up in the next few weeks. Xavier Hill, offensive guard out of Olive Branch High School in Mississippi. Definitely a kid that Alabama likes a lot, has liked a lot for a long time, has very high interest in Alabama. Thought he was going to commit back on, I believe, May the 19th. Decided to push that back. Took some visits. Has visited A&M. Has visited, I think, at LSU. I think he visited Tennessee this past weekend. Now he's got Alabama this weekend. Ole Miss, Mississippi State, still very much in the picture with him. He hasn't said when he's going to make a decision, but this is going to be a big weekend for him and Alabama, because you look at Alabama's class. They have 2 O-line commitments. They're really trying to probably get 1, maybe 2 more guys on the offensive line, and Xavier Hill is one of their top guys that they want. And there's really not a ton of offensive linemen out there that they're really pushing hard for, that they really want to get, but he's one of them. He's one of the guys that they really want. So we'll keep an eye on his official visit this weekend. Now, who are some of the other top targets that are coming in town? Now, we keep seeing names pop up. Oh, he's going to make the trip. He's going to make the trip. Nobody's really confirmed whether or not they're making the trip. I saw Philip Webb. I saw his name on the list. I've seen Savell Smalls' name on the list. Savell has not actually confirmed with hardly anyone if he's going to make the trip or not. So we'll wait and see if that happens. Philip Webb's supposed to be at LSU this weekend, so I was told that if he does make a trip, it would be on Thursday before his visit to LSU. So obviously that's today. Haven't heard 100% yet, but if we do hear something, we'll obviously post it on BamaInsider.com. But 2 targets that I'm keeping an eye on this weekend in terms of being on campus and possibly making a decision, because as we know, numbers are extremely tight, but these 2 guys could go ahead and pull the trigger. Joel Williams out of Baton Rouge, cornerback, camped at Alabama a couple weeks ago, had a great showing, earned an offer from Coach Saban, was committed to Florida. Then he decommitted about a week ago, decommitted from Florida, and looks like there's a good chance he could go ahead and commit. And that's kind of, he would be the number 1 guy probably on my commitment watch list for this weekend is Joel Williams out of Baton Rouge. He's at LSU today. We're going to be at Alabama tomorrow, and I think he's staying the whole weekend. And then Christian Story out of Lynette High School here in Alabama. I think a lot of people are still trying to figure out exactly what position he's going to play in college. He's a tremendous athlete, 6'2", about 190 pounds. Can play on either side of the ball, plays quarterback for his high school team, plays defensive back. Most people see him as a defensive back at the next level. I probably see him more, as a safety. And I think Alabama's got a great chance. I think they're in the driver's seat for him. Is he a take? Absolutely. So we could certainly see him. I don't know if he'll commit just yet. I've been kind of hearing that he'll make a decision sometime in July. So we'll keep an eye on that. But could he go ahead, could he really feel it this weekend and go ahead and say, all right, I'm finished. I'm ready to go ahead and make this decision, especially with the way the numbers are right now. I could definitely see that. And we'll see plenty of kids that are committed to Alabama make their way back to Tuscaloosa to help trying to recruit these guys. Obviously enjoy themselves and be recruited and loved by the Crimson Tide coaching staff, but they're also there to help recruit Quandarius Robinson, Demoy Kennedy, Malachi Moore, Jackson Bratton, Seth McLaughlin. He's coming back. A lot of top kids that are committed to Alabama, all going to be back in town this weekend. and we'll have it all, everything you need to know on BamaInsider.com. We'll have the complete, at least by Friday, I'll have the complete list of kids who are making their way down to Tuscaloosa. We'll have tons of reports, tons of insider scoop. Everything you need to know will be on the BamaInsider.com recruiting message board. That's my message board. That's where I live. So, if you want me more for just one day a week, come to the Bama Insider board, because I'm there, pretty much all day long, every single day. You can ask me questions. I drop recruiting scoop on there throughout the day, every single day. So join us there on the BamaInsider.com recruiting board. And obviously, you'll get all the other great stuff from our team as well. Kyle Henderson and Tony Sukalis, who do a great job covering the team. All right, so I'm going to scroll through here. We're at about 30 minutes. I'm going to scroll through here, see if I've missed anything. I know there's some questions on here, so if I've answered them already, probably won't go back. But I'll scroll through them real quick, and then we'll get out of here. Since it's been 30 minutes, and I know all you people are ready to go watch the USA women in the World Cup. All right, let's see here. How many 5-stars will Alabama have in this class? Yeah, it's hard to say, because you just don't know how many kids are going to end up, being ranked 5-stars in the end. A long way to go. Obviously, Alabama has, Chris Braswell. I think Quandarius Robinson will end up being ranked as a 5-star in the end. Could Drew Sanders possibly be a 5-star down the road? I think there's a good chance that he could really, make a big move in the rankings over the course of the next several months. Really interested to see Thal Jones-Bell. He hasn't, been to a lot of events, been to a lot of camps, but he's playing in the Under Armour game. He has a big showing down there. It's kind of like Jalen Waddle a couple years ago. Just 4-star type kid that Alabama thought was the best wide receiver in the country. Just stayed at 4-star throughout, and then ended up playing in the U.S. Army All-America game. And everybody, I guess, finally figured out how good he was, and he moved up to 5 stars. So that could easily be the same thing for Jones-Bell. Obviously, there's a lot of other top guys that are still out there. Darnell Washington and Zach Evans. Some big name guys that Alabama's in the mix for. That could they potentially flip Justin Rogers down the road? You just never know what may happen. And I think Alabama's got a great class going right now, regardless of how many 5-stars they get. Currently rated as the number 2 recruiting class in the country, and they only have 1 5-star. So, keep an eye on. We'll obviously keep an eye on the rankings over the course of the next several months, and see kind of where things go. Does Alabama still have a shot with Reggie Grimes? I believe they do. I think a lot has to kind of do with what position they see him playing at the next level. I don't know if he's going to be an outside linebacker. Can he be a defensive end? Probably recruited more as an athlete, a defensive athlete, than anything right now. I think Alabama still likes him a lot. You just got to kind of figure out where he fits in, because Alabama's pretty stacked at the linebacker position. You look at some of these guys who were, recruited more as jack linebackers. Chris Braswell, William Anderson. You got those guys already in the fold. Philip Webb is just a major target for them, even though he's not maybe ranked as high as some of these other guys. I think Alabama considers him a very, very important target for them. So we'll see when Reggie makes it back to Tuscaloosa. Let's see here. Do I think Trey? I'm assuming Trey Sanders. I don't know of another Trey will get playing time this season. I think he will. He's too talented not to get on the field. Obviously, Alabama's got some great players in the backfield, but I think they've got a really good chance to get him on the field this fall. Tim, Bone, I'm late. What did I miss? You missed a lot. Do you think Bama will get that QB from USC? We'll see. I mean, he's Bryce Young. He grew up a USC fan. It's going to be hard to flip him. I mean, I think he says, some things like, if the coaching staff leaves, and I could possibly flip, but USC is going to hire, if Clay Helton is fired, USC is going to hire a big time quarterback, a big time coach, and that's probably going to be their first call. So, it's going to be tough. It's hard to sit back and wait on somebody like him, because you just don't know. You don't know what's going to happen 6 months down the road. So I think you got to try to find if you really want a quarterback in this class, you've got to take one. Um, and maybe a kid like Bryce Young falls in your laps down the road, but I think you got to make a decision on somebody early on. Let's see. 2021 Dylan Brooks ? Kendrick Blackshire ? Dylan Brooks has been to Tuscaloosa a couple times already this summer. In-state kid from Hanley High School. About 6'4", 205 pounds. I think Alabama probably wait a little bit for him, in terms of making a big push for him. He's an in-state kid, so they can wait a while with him. Kendrick Blackshire, actually thought he was going to make it back to Tuscaloosa last weekend. Didn't make it back, but I think I definitely think that Alabama's in the driver's seat for him, and wouldn't be surprised if he commits, sometime this summer. Does Quandarius Robinson get his 5th star in the next update? Well, as most people know, Rivals usually does about 31, 32 5-stars. He's currently rated the number 28th player in the country. So if he can stay there or even climb up even further, he's going to get that 5th star. All right, let's see. Thought Flo is coming to the cookout. Flo considered coming to the cookout. He told Rivals I think it was either last week or the week before that he was coming to the cookout. Not coming to the cookout, just going to be on an official visit on September the 20th. Let's see here. Jamie Reed, I'm late, Bone. Do you think Boone? Does Wright get back in the class? Earlier I said I don't think he does. I don't think Alabama would have pushed him out of the class, but I think with him decommitting, I think that it's going to be very tough for him to get back in just because of the numbers. We're in Kyle Edwards' top 2. Do you think we wait on the other 2 guys, Evans or Milton? Yeah, I do. I think Alabama's done a really good job of recruiting Kyle Edwards out of Destrehan High School in Louisiana, 4-star running back. But I do think Alabama has to wait and will wait to see what Zach Evans and Kendall Milton do before they take another running back, because they already have Roydell Williams committed. He's a big-time player. And, I think the goal is to sign 2 backs. So I think, probably Evans, Milton, and I'm not saying in order. Evans and Milton are the top 2 guys on their board, whether that's, 1A or 1B or whatever it may be. And then I think Kyle Edwards is right behind those guys. I think Alabama really likes him, but getting a player like Zach Evans or Kendall Milton, those are 2 special type backs in this recruiting class. So I think you got to wait on those guys before you make a decision. Let's see. Is Mason Garcia the quarterback we want if Bryce stays with USC? Let's see. That's a good question. Mason Garcia camped at Alabama earlier this week, camped at Alabama on Tuesday. I heard he had a pretty good showing. Still kind of a raw type player, raw quarterback. Still kind of developing. I think Alabama likes him, but are they saying, all right, we got to go all in on this kid? I don't think they're doing that just yet. I think they're going to, still kind of evaluating some guys, trying to get some more guys on campus to throw for them, kind of see where they're at after that. But he's certainly a kid that they like. That's probably on their short list in terms of quarterbacks that they're recruiting, and could potentially get the green light to commit. McKinley Jackson, 4-star defensive lineman McKinley Jackson out of George County High School in Mississippi, is a kid who most people think is going to end up at Alabama, but he's also a kid that just completely shuts out everyone in terms of media. At least he does not say a word to anybody. Nobody knows what's going on with him. Even I didn't know that he was in Tuscaloosa last week or 2 weeks ago until last week. We reported that on Bama Insider that he made a kind of a very quiet trip to Tuscaloosa. Great relationship with Brian Baker. I think Alabama's in the driver's seat still with him. Finally, we'll get a chance to catch up with him next week at the Rivals 5-Star Challenge in Atlanta. Kind of see where he stands there, but I definitely think Alabama's in good shape with him. All right, guys. Wow, 38 minutes, 39 minutes. We're only going to do about 20 to 30 minutes today, but we had a lot to go over, had a lot so much recruiting stuff to talk about. So let's see. I'll take one more question here. Is Jalen Milroe a look for Alabama in 2021, or is Deion Sanders' son our guy for the Crimson Tide? I think Jalen Milroe is definitely a kid that they like a lot. I definitely think they'll take 2 quarterbacks in 2021. Shadore Sanders is someone they offered. Name I'd keep an eye out for, though, is Drake May out of North Carolina. Younger brother of Luke May, who was the starting center at North Carolina last couple of years. Very high on Alabama's recruiting board. Wouldn't be surprised if he's their number 1 target at quarterback for 2021. He camped at Alabama last week, just blew it out of the park. And I'd keep a closer eye on Drake May, but I think Jalen Milroe is has Alabama very high on his list as well. So in my opinion, I think Drake May, Jalen Milroe, currently their top 2 guys at the quarterback in 2021. All right, so that's going to be it for today. You can watch the recap on this if you missed it. But like I said, please join us at BamaInsider.com. Big weekend in Tuscaloosa with the cookout. Not going to be coming back on here to talk about it. We're going to be talking about it on BamaInsider.com on my recruiting board. So be sure to jump on there this weekend. Check everything out. But thank y'all so much for joining us today. We'll catch you next time.